There was a time when the most effective classroom in the demolition and construction world was the passenger seat of a pickup truck on a Saturday morning. Young people didn't go because they were compelled. They went because their fathers were heading to the yard to grease the pins or prep a machine for Monday. And those young people weren't merely spectators. They were handed a broom or a spanner and told to get stuck in. They learned how a hydraulic hose felt when under pressure. They learned the specific scent of a hot engine. And most importantly, they learned self-reliance. Back in the day, if something went wrong in the middle of a shift, an operator didn't sit in the cab and wait for a van to arrive from the dealership. They climbed down, got their hands dirty, and they figured it out. That was the Saturday morning apprenticeship, and like so much of what was good about this industry, it's largely vanished. Now, understandably, health and safety regulations have tightened. But in the quest to make this industry perfectly safe, that learning process has been sterilised. The umbilical cord of generational knowledge has been severed. Young starters today often arrive with clean boots and a piece of paper, but without that bone-deep understanding of how steel and earth actually interact. And even when a spark of curiosity exists in the new generation, modern machines seem designed to extinguish it. Where a professional could once strip a pump or adjust a valve with a standard set of tools and a bit of patience, opening the side panel of a modern excavator today is like inspecting a mainframe computer. The industry has entered the era of the sealed unit. Core components are now encased in black boxes. If an operator so much as loosens a bolt to see why a sensor is tripping, they're told they've invalidated the warranty. We've become beholden to the manufacturers in a way that would have been unthinkable even 30 years ago. And that shift has changed the very nature of the fitter. In previous decades, a fitter was a specialist who could keep a dying machine breathing through sheer willpower and maybe a bit of welding. Now, they're often just parts changers. A diagnostic computer provides the code, they swap a module, and they move on. There's no solving anymore, only replacing. And when people are stopped from fixing things, they eventually lose the ability to understand how those things actually work. And then there's the training. Countless hours are now spent in drafty porter cabins watching PowerPoint slides. That's no preparation for the harsh reality of a working site. Somewhat belatedly, I think the industry is finally starting to admit that a week in the classroom and multiple choice tests don't make a person competent. They can pass a CITB test with flying colours and still have no practical idea how to handle a machine. True competence is forged in the dirt, through trial and error, and by watching a mentor who has seen things go wrong before. When people are trained solely in a controlled academic environment, they're trained to follow a script. On a demolition or construction site, the script is thrown out the window. We're producing operators who are fine at following instructions, but hesitant to make a decision when the instructions no longer apply. This matters because when the problem solvers die out, the industry becomes brittle. When a workforce can only function within the narrow lines of training and digital manuals, the slightest deviation causes a shutdown. Projects stall, not because of a lack of effort, but because nobody on site has the mechanical know-how to troubleshoot a relatively minor issue. Time is lost, money is lost, and eventually the art of the craft is lost as well. And this isn't just an issue in the sphere of plant and equipment. Veteran operators were more than just that. They were troubleshooters. They were masters of the workaround. If they encountered an awkward dig or a sketchy bit of demolition, they would see it as a mathematical equation, and they would figure out a solution. Sadly, that old guard, the original problem solvers, are reaching retirement age. They're the ones who know how to tickle a machine to get that last bit of life out of it on a Friday afternoon. And when they pack up their boots for the last time, there's a legitimate worry about who will replace that much-needed intuition. Because intuition can't be taught in a classroom. It can't be downloaded from a manufacturer's portal. It's grown. It's grown through Saturday mornings in the yard, through the grease under your fingernails, and through the freedom to fail and to fix. And this is not a Luddite perspective. I understand the world moves on. The air conditioning in modern cabs and the fact that operators aren't all deaf by the age of 50, they're all positive developments. But we must find a way to bring this problem solver back from the brink. We need a middle ground where young people can get hands-on experience without being buried in red tape. We need to demand that manufacturers provide the right to repair the equipment we've spent hundreds and thousands of pounds on. And most importantly, the industry needs to stop pretending that a plastic-coated ID card is the same thing as experience. Because if we don't, we'll be left with a fleet of the most advanced machinery in history sat idle on site while a dozen people stand around waiting for a technician to arrive and tell them which button to press. This industry was built on grit and steel and brains. But we're in very, very serious danger of forgetting that brains part. And once the problem solvers are gone, they're not coming back. And a site without a problem solver, basically, is just a lot of people and a lot of machines standing still.